Hey guys, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming to you with another Victober video. And so today I thought we would do a 5-star TBR prediction. So one of the very first videos on my channel, and I hope I've hidden it, is a 5-star TBR prediction from my very first Victober back in 2018. So I thought we would check in with the books I mentioned there. I only mentioned 5. And I didn't get to a couple of them, but honestly, on the whole, I feel pretty proud that I got to the 3 that I got to, and I, in general, had a very good experience with those books. So when I am talking about a 5-star TBR prediction, I don't necessarily believe that all of the books on the list are going to get that 5 stars. I just think I'm going to thoroughly enjoy them. So really the hope with a 5-star TBR prediction, from me anyway, is at least a 4-star, maybe a high 4-star, and of course, I do ultimately want to give a 5-star, but as I've gotten older, and really as my booktube channel has progressed more and more, I have found it harder and harder to give out the kind of coveted 5-star rating to many books. So ultimately, the hope is just that I really, really enjoy these. So let's check in with the books that I named 2 years ago. The first on that list was A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and you do not know how glad I am to say that I have since read A Tale of Two Cities, because it seems like this is a book that has haunted me for years and that I have frequently thought I would give 5 stars to. In the end, A Tale of Two Cities was a 4-star read for me, and I think in my heart of hearts, really looking at the book closely, it's probably just a 3-star. But there are parts of this book and certain scenes of it that really push it over into greatness, and so that's why it has a 4-star rating from me. But I honestly believed this was going to be the Dickens for me. This was going to be the only Charles Dickens book that I cared anything about, and sadly that wasn't the case. I did enjoy this, and I think the reading experience of it is really great, and I also appreciate the length of it because it's not one of those bricks that takes you months to read. But there were elements of it that were definitely weaker than other books that I've read by Charles Dickens, and I wonder, had I started my journey with Charles Dickens here, would I have felt that way, or would I have felt like A Tale of Two Cities was a much tighter book? So I'm not really sure. I consider this a success, but I knew going into it that my expectations for it were way too high. I really thought this was going to be, you know, the ultimate perfect book, and it's not. There is no true perfect book, but I think Charles Dickens has written a book that comes the closest to it, and I think that's great expectations. So on the whole, I definitely prefer Great Expectations to A Tale of Two Cities, but it really is a good book, and it does make you feel things. Another of the books on my original 5-star TBR predictions for Victober was The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, and I am pleased to say that I did actually give this book 5 stars. On the whole, The Moonstone is not as tight a work as The Woman in White. That's just the honest truth. And yet, from what I've heard, a lot of people prefer The Moonstone to The Woman in White, so your mileage may vary with that. I honestly thought I was probably going to like it more based on what people have said, and I didn't, but it's still such a wonderful book. It's so tight, it's so funny, and there are so many elements of it that you really do not see coming, that you kind of think, okay, yeah, I've got this figured, but really you don't, because so much happens. He throws so much at you. So I'm really pleased that I actually got one correct, that I really did rate one of the books on the list 5 stars. But of course, that was a little bit of a freebie. That was a little bit of a gimme, just because I kind of knew from my reading experience of The Woman in White that I just really enjoyed reading Wilkie Collins' style, and so that definitely bore out with The Moonstone. Next on my list was Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon, and I rated this a very high 4 stars. This is one of my favorite Victorian novels of all time. And this is a title that I think is a very easy recommend. I mean, I definitely would recommend this to anybody who wants to get into Victorian literature, as I think it's a weirdly good beginner's book for the time period. And on the whole, it's just another fun, wild ride with things that you don't see coming, with things and elements that you have to try and figure out. You may think you got it right, but you don't, because so much else is coming at you. And it's also relatively short for a Victorian novel, which makes it a really fun reading experience, and it kind of takes the pressure off, especially especially in a month like Victober, this is a good book to slide in because you know that you can probably get to this and that you can get to it rather quickly compared to some other books on your Victorian TBR. So this was not a 5-star. In my heart though, I think when I put it on the list, I knew that that was going to be the case. I felt pretty darn sure that Lady Audley's Secret wouldn't hit 5 stars, but that I would at least thoroughly enjoy it, and that was definitely the case. And so now for the 2 that I technically didn't get to, so I guess we can count these as part of my 5-star TBR list that I have today. So the first of these is the brick that is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. And there are so many reasons why I haven't gotten to this. This is now the running joke that A Tale of Two Cities was for me, in that for years and years I have said that I am going to read Wives and Daughters. It has been on multiple yearly TBRs for me at this point, and I know why I haven't picked it up, and that's because of its size. But I know a lot of people really love this, and a lot of people consider this Elizabeth Gaskell's best. And so another reason why I know that I keep putting it off is that I feel like I should get to the rest of her works before I read this one. If this is gonna blow the rest of her titles out of the water, I really want to read some of her more controversial works like Ruth or Sylvia's Lovers, so that I know that I've read those and given them their chance before this came in and kind of swept everything else away. I also probably too need to temper my expectations with this. My expectations for Wives and Daughters are fairly high. The other that I did not get to last time was Lorna Dune by R.D. Blackmore, and this is technically on my TBR for this month, but I don't think I'm going to get to it because it's up against another historical fiction that I actually really want to read, so I don't know that I'll get to Lorna Dune this month, which is a shame because it does feel like it's the best time of year to read something like Lorna Dune. But this is one that I just have a very good feeling about. I for sure think Lorna Dune will get 5 stars. I don't think it's going to be a 4-star or just enjoy it, or even a high 4-star. I definitely think I'm going to give Lorna Dune 5. I just have that feeling about it, and a lot of people who I trust have told me this will definitely work for me, that it feels in a weird way like The Count of Monte Cristo. I've heard somebody say that, and that I guess it's more of an adventure story. And a lot of people have also said it feels very much like Ivanhoe. And so I'm really looking forward to this because I've only ever heard it compared to other books that I really love. But my expectations for it are very high. And I have also started reading it before when I knew I was going into a slump. So I put it down because I didn't want that to affect the reading experience. But there is some very dense language in here from what I recall of diving into it. I think I made it 50 pages in. And I found the language a little bit hard to follow because this is set in the 1600s. And I think R.D. Blackmore decided to play with phrase and play with language in a weird way, and so that makes this a harder reading experience than other Victorian novels might be. So in a way I have that concern with this too, but a lot of people have told me that they just absolutely love this. So I need to get over the hump with it. Maybe I will attempt it this month. We don't know. So on to the list that I have for you today. These are all titles that I have picked up recently and that I just have a very good feeling about. So the first of these is Two on a Tower by Thomas Hardy. And I know for a lot of people, Two on a Tower is just not the best Thomas Hardy. In fact, a lot of people don't like it at all. I don't know if that's because the book is so short. I don't know if it's how it's written. I don't know if there's just not necessarily a very good plot there. So I'm curious about this. I, on the whole, have a very good feeling about it because this is supposedly a very romantic book and it's about astronomy. I just think I'm really going to get on with it. I think it's going to be a vibe. I think it's going to be an aesthetic that I really agree with. And that's been my experience with Thomas Hardy so far, is just that he and I get on in terms of the aesthetic. And sometimes when I read, I'm a little bit more interested in that, in the atmosphere, in how things are described, kind of where the place is set. I'm almost a little bit more invested in that in some cases than I am in character work, which is a weird thing to say, but I think Thomas Hardy really achieves that very well, so I'm looking forward to this. And I know that a lot of people are doing the Stitch and Listen this year, and they're listening to Two on a Tower. So I'm curious to see what people think about it when they get to the end of it this year. So I'm hoping that a lot of people will do some discussion wrap-ups of this, and we'll see how they feel about it. But I have a very, very good feeling about Two on a Tower. Next on my list is Dearbrooke. A lot of people love this, and a lot of people have told me too that I will like it. I know this is a story about sisters, and that a lot of people seem to love how this plays with society and expectations, and so I'm really looking forward to this. I actually just commented on Katie from Books and Things' video. She did a video on Victorian books about siblings, and she mentioned this, and I said, I just have a really good feeling about Dearbrooke. And she commented back to me, she says, I was gonna say that I think you're gonna really like Dearbrooke, but I can't tell you why. I just think it's gonna be a book that you'll like. And that's on the whole my feeling with it. So I've been recommended Dearbrooke many times over, and so I am really looking forward to it. I wanted to put a Charles Dickens on this list. The sad thing is that I think of all of the Dickens that I have left, there are going to be multiple 5-star reads. I really love Dickens, so I have a very good feeling about the majority of his work. So the book that I wanted to put on here, though, I just wanted to narrow it down to one, is the one that I have the best gut feeling about, and that's Little Dorrit. And I, again, can't really put my finger on what about this speaks to me, but I just think I'm going to love Amy Dorrit as a character. A lot of people have said of all of Dickens's female characters, Amy Dorrit really stands out. And so this is about Amy Dorrit, who has been raised in a debtor's prison because that's where her father is. And so she's going about her life day to day, trying to find work and disguise the fact that that's where she lives, that that's her background. And somebody told me on my favorite male characters in Victorian literature video that the male main character of Little Dorrit I will really like. And I get the sense that I'm gonna like him too. So I just think this will be a little bit more of a lighthearted read of Dickens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is gonna have a lot of twists and turns and it's gonna be very sad, like some others of his books. But I have the sense that I am gonna really like Amy Dorrit, and I have the sense too that it will wind up being a fairly happy story. Don't rain on my parade if it's not. Actually, maybe do. Tell me down below, is Little Dorrit sad? Next up, I have The Odd Women by George Gissing, and this is another novel that everyone who's read it has raved about. And I have very rarely seen a negative review of The Odd Women. This is a later Victorian novel that apparently is very feminist and has a lot to say about women in Victorian society. So I am really interested to read it from that aspect. And on the whole, I have to say, I don't really know what the plot of the book is going to be. I just know that it deals with social issues in a very interesting way. And I also know that they ride the tube in this book, and that is incredible to me. I just can't wait to read a Victorian book where people actually ride on the tube. Sometimes my brain doesn't put stuff like that together. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I know for a fact that the tube is the oldest subway system in the world, and I know when it started up. So you would think by default that, you know, Bram Stoker rode on the subway and might have written about it, but it just doesn't compute to me. And I have a very similar issue with like 1492, the year 1492 in general. So it's hard for me to compute that Lorenzo de' Medici, Lorenzo the Magnificent, died in 1492. That's the same year Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's the same year that the Borgia Pope, Alexander VI, comes into office. And it's also the same year that Elizabeth Woodville, who was a major, major figure and a Queen of England during the Wars of the Roses, she died that year. And so to me, the Wars of the Roses, the Borgias, and Columbus, they all feel like they are from three extremely different time periods in my opinion, but they all tie together in that year. So my brain sometimes has a hard time keeping up with that. So I'm excited, so excited to read characters in a Victorian novel riding the tube. I just think that's going to be incredible. This is also encouragingly short, so I am looking forward to reading this and hopefully getting to it by the end of the year, but I doubt that will happen. Next, I have Studies in the History of the Renaissance by Walter Pater. Now, I'm torn on this because a lot of people seem to be torn on it as well, in that some people really think his scholarship is good, but hate his attitude here. And other people really like his flair for the dramatic and like his way of writing, but think his scholarship is incredibly faulty. So this is a nonfiction work about the Italian Renaissance, and I picked this up because of the book that I am writing, and I kind of wanted to read this for research. But since picking it up, I have heard that the book on the whole is not necessarily tight in terms of its historical fact, and so I'm interested to read it to see what he got wrong. I ultimately have a very good feeling about this, and I think I'm going to rate it a very high 4 stars, but other people have told me that I'm probably not going to like it. So this is one I am torn on. This could go either way. This might be one of the ones on this list that actually really disappoints me. This one could either be 5 stars or it could be 1 star, and I'm not quite sure where I think I will fall on this, but I will let you know my feelings on this definitely by the end of the year, because I plan on getting to this in Nonfiction November and maybe even starting it this month. Last but not least, we've got to give me an easy one, don't we? We have to give me a shoe-in for a 5 star or at least a 4 star. So we have Armadale by Wilkie Collins. We all know Wilkie Collins is my favorite Victorian author right now, and I have no doubt that Armadale will continue this trend with me. I think I'm going to really enjoy it. This is apparently about a bigamist, and that just sounds so intriguing to me. This is a sensation novel, and so I know it's going to play with some really interesting social stuff, and that it's going to do it through a very interesting lens. So I think coming off of No Name, which was about illegitimacy, diving into a book about bigamy might be a very, very interesting experience. I have been so tempted this month to pick this up, and you know what? I might read it this month. I have a really good feeling about Armadale. And before reading No Name, I definitely thought I would like Armadale better. Now, that may not be the case, but I did initially think I would probably like Armadale more than No Name, but I loved No Name. No Name was 4 stars for me. So I am really excited about this one, and hopefully everything on this list will be read by next year's Victober so that I can do another updated 5-star TBR prediction and tell you whether or not I rated all of these 5 stars or at least a high 4 stars. So I would be curious to know if you have read any of these on my list. Were they on your 5-star TBR prediction? Do you have any books that are on a 5-star TBR prediction for you personally? But that's going to be all for me today. I hope you're all having a great week. Happy reading. Goodbye.